Hey everybody, welcome to part two. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate y'all sticking with us on the journey. We're here to go further in depth with what we talked about yesterday and basically explain the difference, between a U.S. citizen and an American state national. We're here to talk about how we've been press ganged, meaning we've been taken and basically forced into a foreign jurisdiction that we don't belong in and that we have no part in. And the biggest trespass and the biggest problem with that is it usurps our sovereignty. We're born with inherent sovereignty, endowed by our Creator. And in America, all the living people in the nation are the ones that hold all sovereign power. And, I guess in order to trespass on that freedom, and in order to flip the script and to make people lower than employee, than public service provider, they've created this. Well, they didn't create it, but basically they brought back this ancient system called the Justinian deception, and it's a system of using, I guess you could say this foreign sign language to, and this word magic to, make people less than people using words and semantic deceit and unlawful conversion and barratry and chicanery and all these crazy law words that it's just very evil what they've done to us. So I'm gonna start out by reading some of Anna's paperwork, and it's going to explain to you very quickly that if you're not, we talked about jurisdictions in the last video. If you're not domiciled in a state of the union, you don't own any property. Meaning, you don't have life, liberty, property. If you pay a mortgage on a home, believe it or not, let's say you have 5 acres, paid off your entire mortgage, all you do is pay property taxes. But you still don't own that property. You see, a mortgage is like a title, and it basically makes you a tenant with, the full control of the property in the state, going to your monarch, which would be, the Queen and the Lord Mayor of London. So obviously that's not how it's supposed to be in this free country. That's not the way it was set up. And, it's clear to say that we have to correct the record. And, a lot of people don't think that they have to correct the record. They think they could just learn the fraud and just, maneuver around it. But, just to rebut all those presumptions and assumptions, and just to basically, as a thing is bound, so is it unbound. So, as they have trafficked us, from the land to the sea, and then from the sea to the global air, we have to kind of just reverse to go back to the land. So I'm just going to read a few articles, like I said, and then I'll just, go in depth on some of the information, where needed. All right. So, and I'll post all these articles, of course, in the chat below, so everybody can look along. We're very transparent around here. We don't believe in hiding information or one-sided information. That's the opposite of truth and journalism, or verifying fact. I mean, there's many words for it, whatever you want to call it. There's only one way to find the truth, and that's to look at all aspects and decide what's concrete and what is set in stone, and to go from there. So, a citizen equals a public servant, either state or federal. State nationals equal sovereign. What does sovereign mean? Sovereign means, I'll tell you right now, I got it printed. Someone who's self-governing, someone who's free, someone who's autonomous, who's independent, someone who has, all the authority in their land. The national is not obligated to act as a citizen of either the federal corporation nor of any state, but that does not fulfill the need that there continues to be for people to step up and fill public offices and serve the need of their communities for peacekeeping courts, public facilities, and public services of all kind. Whenever you see the word of, you are talking about an incorporated entity. Thus, the United States of America is a corporation of the states of America, and the state of Georgia is its local franchise organization. Think of the Georgia state as you normally think of it, a geographically defined landmass with borders, people living within those borders. That is the Georgia state, not the state of Georgia. This is what people have to grasp. Since 1868, the Georgia state does not equal the state of Georgia. The state of Georgia, or the state of Georgia, all capitals, or the state of Georgia, uppercase, lowercase, or Georgia, all capitalized. These are just legal fictions layered on top of the actual states and people, meant to operate in an entirely different and separate jurisdiction, that of the international jurisdiction of the sea. And remember, that's where, no material rights exist, but that's where we deal with trade and, international laws of nations and commerce between them, that sort of thing. The Georgia state and its people are supposed to be operating under the law of the land. The state of Georgia, as a franchise of the United States of America Incorporated, is supposed to be operating in the international jurisdiction of the sea. The people of Georgia are supposed to be operating as Georgia nationals, known as Georgians for the most part, and those who are occupying positions in the Georgia state government, judges, sheriffs, coroners, deputies, clerks, bailiffs, land recorders, jurors, justices of the peace, dog catchers, all the public employees of the Georgia state are supposed to be operating as Georgia state citizens. Those who are inhabiting the fictional realm of the state of Georgia are functioning as United States citizens or employees of the federal government, either at the federal level or at the federated state level. Strictly speaking, there should be no federated states, and it is a travesty that there is, but a loophole in the Constitution. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 allows the federal government operating the United States Congress to organize the government of the District of Columbia. That is, the District of Columbia Municipal Corporation. However, Congress pleases, and it has pleased Congress to open up state franchises of their own separate government to serve their own citizens in every state of the Union. There is nothing strictly prohibiting it, but this has given rise to a gross usurpation and confusion. Georgia nationals have been confused into thinking that they are Georgia state citizens, even when they haven't occupied any public office. They have been confused into claiming that they are United States citizens, that is, employees and servants of the federal government corporations, when that is an entirely foreign status. If you know who you are and in what status you are operating with respect to the government, if you don't know who you are and in what status you are operating in with respect to the government, who does? Are you a Georgian operating as a Georgia state national with all your rights and immunities intact? Or are you a Georgia state citizen filling a public office of some kind for the Georgia state government? Or are you a citizen of the state of Georgia Municipal Corporation, filling a public office for the federal state of state Georgia franchise? Or, that was the territorial. Or are you a citizen of the state of Georgia, filling a public office, or are you a United States citizen, filling a public office or operating as a franchisee of the United States of America, Inc., or the United States, Inc.? Generally speaking, it is better not to operate as any kind of citizen at all, so that you are not obligated to serve the public function and can get on with your life as a private man or woman. But the reality is that to preserve the rights and freedoms and public services that everyone wants to enjoy, some of us have to act as citizens, and at least for a term of time or office, serve the needs of our committees, our states on the land, and even the states of states, operating in the international jurisdiction of the sea. For example, when a man or woman signs up to serve in the U.S. military, they are temporarily giving up their status as a Georgian and accepting the much lower status of a citizen of the United States. They are doing this in good faith to serve the interests of their beloved Georgia state and all its sister states comprising the Union states established by the Articles of Confederation, and the people of those states of the Union. Unfortunately, the corporations running things in behalf of these organic states have run amok, and the people of the organic states of the Union have not kept up and paid close enough attention to rein them in. That is the whole current discussion. That's what the whole current discussion is about, the criminality of the so-called federal corporations operating as the United States, Inc. and the United States of America, etc., and their various state-of-state franchises operating on our soil. These corporations exist only to provide governmental services to our organic states and our people, but they have become greedy and predatory, and have even contrived to press gang natural birthright Georgia state nationals into the completely foreign jurisdiction and political status of citizens of the United States, and or endeavored to mischaracterize them as employees of the U.S. of A. So, as we just learned, the American government is composed of 3 unions, of 3 different kinds of states. You have the soil, the land, and in-choate federal states of states. The United States, uppercase, lowercase, equals the soil jurisdiction. That makes up the states and people, which is geographically defined Republican states, state republics, and republics of states. The United States of America is the international land jurisdiction, states and people, international. It is geographically defined, and its members are Ohio, Maine, Florida, Georgia, etc. The state general assemblies create and operate and populate these geographically defined states of the Union, and together constitute we the people. So the state general assemblies create and operate and populate those states of the Union in international jurisdiction, and together they constitute we the people. So you're only we the people if you're part of your state assembly and you're domiciled in your state of the Union. So the states of America, the global jurisdiction states of states, not geographically defined. They're in-choate legal fictions. Remember, they're just creations of the mind. They exist by consent only, and they're man-made. They're made by thought. They're in-choate legal fictions, and their members are the state of Ohio, the state of Maine, the state of Florida. These are not states in the same sense as land and soil jurisdiction states, Georgia, Maine. They are commercial corporations operating in the global municipal jurisdiction of the air as states of states. The persons operating these states of states, create state-of-state jural societies instead of jural assemblies. The land and soil jurisdiction states require us to have a single citizenship and allegiance. They don't allow any form of dual citizenship and never have. So you can either be one of the people in your state assembly, or you can be one of the persons in a state jural society. The founders adhered to the principle that no man can serve two masters and did not allow conflicted people, meaning people with conflicts of interest, such as loyalty to the king, queen, pope, etc., foreign powers, right, to participate in our state government. Thus, obviously, you need to expatriate from any other citizenship if you want to participate in the state jural assembly. And if you want to continue to claim dual citizenship as a federal employee or dependent, you are welcome to set up a state jural society and operate in that realm and continue to do the political party hokey pokey. America as a whole needs help from both sides of the fence, but there is a fence, and we need to be aware of it. Sorry. So, there are many different kinds of governments and many different kinds of citizenship as a result. The word citizenship always indicates that you have an obligation to serve a government instead of having the government serve you. Do you even want to be a citizen and accept a duty to serve a government? And if so, what kind of government will you choose to serve? I am suggesting that you renounce a foreign citizenship, binding you to serve an incorporated entity, so that you can live as free men and women again. And if you so choose, can take up a state/state citizenship as an American. There are actually some idiots out there clinging to their citizenship, owed to the United States, Inc., a bankrupt foreign commercial corporation, and ranting and raving and accusing me of somehow doing something wrong by telling those of you who can do so to exit from this merely presumed citizenship obligation. You have to exit that presumed duty in order to accept your actual duty as an American state republic citizens or American state citizens, which is needed for the sake of this country and which is also a much better deal for you. You can't operate the unincorporated American government you are owed and operate the incorporated federal government at the same time. Imagine a fence. On one side is the unincorporated American government you are heir to. Your freedoms and all treaties and guarantees, including constitutional guarantees, our Bill of Rights, right? First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th Amendment. On the other side of the fence is a de facto enslavement. Citizenship and service and duty to incorporated foreign entities, which are commercial corporations in the business of providing governmental service. I am suggesting that you leave this second kind of foreign U.S. citizenship. The so-called Nasara News Network is exposed as nothing but another co-opted federal psyop run by puppets and fools. There is nothing obligating you to serve foreign incorporated entities as citizens, unless, of course, you are directly employed by them. Most of us aren't federal civilian employees or in the active duty. Or in the active duty U.S. military, so we have no obligations and are free to assume our natural status as either American nationals or American state citizens / state republic citizens. You can be a citizen of the American state republics or a citizen of the American states. You can act as one of the progeny or one of the people who set up the constitutions and who can enforce the constitutions, or you can stay where you are. as a presumed citizen of the United States, Inc., and or the USA, Inc., and have no rights, no guarantees, and no standing as an American at all. Your choice. I am the one who told you about the existence of the US, Inc. I am also the one who told you about the existence of the USA, Inc. These are both incorporated ringers, infringing on the good names of the United States, an unincorporated union of soil jurisdiction state republics, and the United States of America, an unincorporated union of land jurisdiction states, both of which are part of our American government. So we have the counties, and that's the national government. So if I'm talking about Georgia, all 161 counties, right? Each county is its own soil jurisdiction state republic, each county. And then the state of Georgia is one unincorporated union made up of all those counties. And it represents Georgia through the state assembly, which is the living people of Georgia acting in their proper capacity. And that's where they deal in international business, meaning that's where, they vote with other states on certain issues, the other state assemblies, the other states of the union. So don't get confused when you hear land and soil. The soil is the intrastate, meaning, in your state, in your nation. Believe it or not, Georgia's its own nation. That's why we're called nation states. So Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, 3 different nations. When they deal with each other, they deal in the international jurisdiction of the land through their state assembly. When Georgia's voting on intrastate, meaning inside their own state, national issues, then they vote with the counties in their soil jurisdiction. So, notice that all the organizations that actually represent the people are unincorporated. Notice that all the organizations that involve the federal persons are incorporated. They have claimed that you are acting, voluntarily no less, for free as a federal person, a corporate franchise, and that you are accepting all the thankless duties of being a U.S. citizen, or citizen of the U.S., or capital U.S. citizen. This obligates you to their commercial corporation. This allows them to seize upon your assets as assets donated to the commercial corporation. This allows them to abuse you and deny you your rights, even civil rights or human rights. This sets them free to ignore your natural and unalienable rights, and also allows them to ignore your constitutional guarantees. So I have alerted you to this circumstance and have suggested that those of you who aren't on the federal payroll and who are not obligated to act as citizens of these incorporated entities should expatriate from any presumed obligation to act as U.S. citizens of any kind. I have also pointed out that you can operate as U.S. citizens that you can't operate as U.S. citizens belonging to these incorporated organizations and also take part in your own American government. Again, these vermin are swarming out of the woodwork, trying to confuse the issues and even trying to accuse the states of misleading us and operating as some kind of agent for the U.S. Inc. They have all suggested that you might lose something material and important if you follow my advice and exit this phony, foreign, incorporated form of U.S. citizenship. The only kind of citizenship worth having, and which you are naturally heir to, is the citizenship of the state republics, the soil jurisdiction, and in the state governments, the land jurisdiction. None of the state republics and none of the actual state governments are incorporated. The union of the unincorporated state republics, doing business as the United States since July 4th, 1776, is and was unincorporated. This is the only version of the U.S. that Americans owe a natural allegiance to. The Union of the Unincorporated States, doing business as the United States of America since September 9th, 1776, is also unincorporated. This is the only version of the U.S. of A that Americans owe natural allegiance to. All of the organizations that I belong to and that I advocate for are unincorporated and always have been. I claim no citizenship relating to the United States, Inc., and don't recommend it as anything beneficial. Never have. Yet I have fools and government agents out there and the idiots running supposedly alternative news sites trying to lie about me and about what I am telling you in the face of 1,500 published articles, now 3,000. Anyone who tells you lies about me, about citizenship, about these various unincorporated and incorporated entities, all calling themselves U.S. and U.S. of A., needs to be marked as a fool or a traitor or both. There is a very fine YouTube presentation from 1998 in which Richard McDonald, one of the grand old men of the Patriot movement, explains state citizenship from the standpoint of the federal corporations back then. Bear in mind that he is explaining the same basic circumstances I am, just explaining it from the federal side of the fence. Remember, two different sides. There's a fence. A few details have changed since Richard gave this presentation, but the information remains overall accurate. Right, so that'll be there too if you want to grab it. Okay, so who owns what, and how does the power of the American government flow? All ultimate power is vested in the living people. All of it. Remember, we're sovereigns in our own right. The people own and control the soil and operate the soil jurisdiction Republican states via organizations like the Georgia Republic, the Republic of Georgia, and the Republic of Georgia. This is the national jurisdiction that determines all the rest. These Republican states are all members of the United States, an unincorporated union of unincorporated Republican states. And remember, when you hear the word Republican here, don't let cognitive dissonance and, these stereotypes and these arguments trigger and take you away from the information. This is the Republican form of government. That means of, for, and by the people. This has nothing to do with the Republican political party, which is the same, it's an incorporated entity usurping on us and acting as, a sovereign over the people, and the people employ all those, public service providers. So remember, the counties actually run as a Republican form of government, meaning of, for, and by the people. So these Republican states are all members of the United States and an unincorporated union of unincorporated Republican states. The subservience of the international land jurisdiction underlying the Republican states can be demonstrated easily enough. Think of the soil and surface water. The top 6 inches of everything you see as a skin. You can't get on the land underlying the soil surface without passing through the soil, can you? So the land jurisdiction state, Georgia, underlying the soil layer is owned, operated, and possessed by the soil jurisdiction Republican states that belong to the living people. The international land jurisdiction state controls all the subsurface resources, the minerals, and the groundwater. This is the realm of the living people and lawful persons. Soil and land, which includes all the fresh surface water and groundwater too. This is also the realm of the state assemblies. Beyond this lies the watery and airy world of the purely fictional states of states, which all function as legal persons, administered by more legal persons. Originally, the states of states belonged directly to the states. They were commercial corporations, chartered, owned, and operated by the states, and members of the Confederation of States doing business as the United States of America. The original states of states were empowered to conduct all the business of the states in the international jurisdiction of the sea and in the global municipal jurisdiction of the air, and they did so until the adoption of the Constitution in 1787, when a power-sharing arrangement dictated by earlier treaties kicked in. Thereafter, the original states of states acquired contractual obligations as a group, and the United States of America became responsible for providing mutual services and exercising specific joint powers on behalf of the United States of America, our Federation of States, under the Constitution for the United States of America. All states of states are naturally subservient to the states, as can be demonstrated by the fact that no state of state can even be named without the presence of a pre-existing state. Just try having a state of Georgia or a state of Florida without a Georgia or a Florida. So these entities too all ultimately belong to the people of this country. Several other powers that were originally exercised by the states of states were ceded to the British monarch. These included control of the U.S. Navy and commercial fleet, and control of our trade policies, as well as physical control of our territorial possessions, such as Guam and American Samoa. This was done via the territorial constitution, called the Constitution of the United States of America. So that's the second constitution. And remember, that's the territorial. So who do we have a contract with? We have a territorial contract with the British monarch, where we ceded several, meaning some, we gave some powers, including the control of the U.S. Navy and commercial fleet, control of our trade policies, as well as the physical control of Guam, American Samoa, Puerto Rico, etc. This is the entity doing business as the United States of America, as opposed to the Federation of States doing the unincorporated United States of America. Finally, control of the Washington, D.C. municipality was delegated to the Holy Roman Empire through Westminster, with the understanding that the plenary oligarchy established there was to be exercised by the members of the Federal Congress, and the 10-mile square was to serve as a neutral meeting space to conduct our country's international trade and commercial business. This was finalized via the Constitution of the United States. So that's the third constitution, right? The third debt agreement or contract with a service provider. This one was done with it was delegated to the Holy Roman Empire. And they were given control of Washington, D.C., with the understanding that that plenary oligarchy, meaning they're their own self-governing, nation, they're foreign with regards to us, that they would exercise a 10-mile square to serve as a neutral meeting space to conduct our country's international trade and commercial business. This municipal international city-state is what does business as the United States, as opposed to our union of republican states doing business as the United States. Through it all, the people retained the ownership interest and control. All powers flowed directly from the people to the unincorporated counties, to the unincorporated states, to the states of states that were chartered and operated by the people themselves, and were consolidated first in the Union of States, called the United States. Next, in the Federation of the States, called the United States of America. And finally, in the Confederation of States doing business as the States of America. Except for the stipulating power sharing with the British monarch, which obligated them, to act as our trustee and a very minor foothold, however strategically placed, for the Holy Roman Empire. The American people owned everything and controlled everything. Right? We gave them these powers. We delegated this authority. It was and is a government of, for, and by the people, literally. And the international land jurisdiction states played and still play the linchpin and leading role. This is because the states are the fundamental connector between the realm of the people and the soil and the rest of the world. The states stand at the interface between the international land jurisdiction and the international sea jurisdiction. They are both the bulwark against encroachment by incorporated entities and the comptroller of all our worldly business interests. The actual states are the key to running the whole government properly, and the assemblies are key to running the states. Now you can see why those who wish to undermine our government also seek to keep everyone confused and bent of creating more state-of-state organizations instead of assembling the actual states belonging to the Union. So long as we chase our tails and create states of states, we can be attacked and our efforts nullified. But if we stand on the solid ground of the land, soil, and assemble our actual states, the jig is up. There is a vast difference between a state assembly and a state-of-state assembly. One is composed of lawful persons, American state citizens, and the other is composed of legal persons, U.S. citizens. The state assembly owns and controls the state of state, so the decisions of the state assembly, should they be contrary in vision or particulars, automatically overrule the actions and druthers of the state-of-state assembly. This is so-called checks and balances, and was built into every level of the government. Every level of the government we are heir to. This is a matter of actual owners taking care of business and telling the hired help what to do. When the state assembly speaks, the state-of-state assembly has to obey. The hired help at the state-of-state level, too, often wish to usurp the role of the actual owners and tell us what to do, and also seek to benefit themselves surreptitiously from the unobstructed use of our public property and other assets. Those who wish to act as U.S. citizens and create new state of state are competing against the existing state of states. Like any two commercial corporations competing for the same contract, this activity naturally draws the attention and adversity of the current contractor and leads to the arrest and abuse of those organizing such efforts. Those who act as American state citizens and who assemble the actual states are acting in a totally different and higher capacity that does not compete with any state of state, but which does hold the authority to tell the state of state what to do, both in general and in specifics. The actual state assembly, composed of American state citizens, has the authority to tell the state of state governor how high to jump, how to administer the state resources, what fees and charges the people will accept, and what services they will receive or not from the state of state. It is precisely this role of the state citizens in the state assembly that has stood empty for too long, leaving the people of this country without a voice and without control over the succession of mostly foreign commercial corporations that have edged in here since the Civil War and operated as states of states. You are being called to act as state assemblymen and assemblywomen, not state of state assembly members. This distinction is of ultimate importance in terms of both your experience and benefit to your state and your country. Sure, we can agree that all the services of the state of state organizations need vast improvement. Sure, we can all agree that the new service providers, or at least that we need new service providers, or at least better informed and better directed. But at the end of the day, that's quibbling amongst the hired help. It's not the voice of the actual employers coming forward, nor is it the sound of the employers putting their flat feet down. And that's what is needed. We cannot go on another 100 years letting the tail wag the dog, or being endlessly confused about the difference between an actual state and an actual state-of-state organization we employ to do work for us. Put simply, the actual state is populated by lawful persons who are American state citizens. The state-of-state commercial corporations that we either create or hire to provide us with services are populated by legal persons who are U.S. citizens of one kind or another. As you can see from the title of these articles, you are being called to act in the capacity of lawful persons, as employers and as American state citizens. We are not calling for local chapters of the current state-of-state commercial corporations to assemble, nor asking for input from our employees, the U.S. citizens among us. We are calling the actual states and people of the country to assemble. We are calling upon those who can and will expatriate from all territorial and municipal United States citizenship to come onto the land and soil, jurisdiction, and take care of business. No state coordinator or member of any state assembly should support or have anything to do with any organization that includes U.S. citizens as members and which pretends to be organizing a state. Be forewarned, what they are assembling is not a true State of the Union. What these Tories are organizing is by definition another British territorial state of state for their queen, which they are attempting to substitute like cuckoo birds for the actual American federal states of states which we are owed. They are trying to pull the same trick on us that they pulled in the wake of the Civil War, only this time we have the weather gauge. We know what they are doing. We know who they are. We know the difference between us and them. They include U.S. citizens as members. The only thing they can assemble is a foreign state-of-state corporation. And only those of us who can and who are willing can act in the capacity of American state citizens and assemble a true State of the Union. The object of assembling our actual states is to give proof to the world that the American government is still here and to take care of our own business, which includes rechartering our own federal states of states to serve the needs of the American states and people. We are not interested in serving the British Queen or the Pope or whatever other foreign interest is lurking in the shadows behind these would-be usurpers and the deluded brethren supporting them. Be sure to spread the word and drive home the importance of this message. Any group purporting to be a state assembly, which includes U.S. citizens as members, is not one of our states and is not a member of our union and is not American. We will ruthlessly expose these groups as fakes and their leaders as traitors, acting in gross breach of trust against the states and people they are bound to serve. We will expose them in their activities on our shores, and we will take them and their queen and their pope to the court of world opinion for judgment of their breach of trust and bad faith and criminal abuse of Americans. We will redouble our efforts to educate other Americans, to bring pressure upon the military and political leadership, and to oust these imposters once and for all. Ours is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Lawful persons, all in all standing firmly on the land and soil of our beloved country. Our government is not a government of the persons, by the persons, or for the persons. Legal persons, U.S. citizens, have no inheritance of our land and soil, and no right to be confusing themselves with or competing against our lawful government in any way, shape, or form. It's time for Americans to rise up and reclaim their stolen birthright, to assemble our states and put an end to the great fraud. Now that you know what a lawful person is, be aware that our assembly, both the soil jurisdiction and assemblies of the state republics, the counties, and the land jurisdiction assembly of the states, the State of the Unions, are exclusively populated by lawful persons. This is because only lawful persons, who are still attached to their physical reality and to the specific locations in space, can populate the soil and land jurisdictions, which are likewise geographically and physically defined lawful persons. So even the unincorporated counties and the unincorporated state are lawful persons because they're actual, factual, and tangible, and they have actual standing. They don't exist in the global jurisdiction of the air, in the realm of thought. They weren't just thought of. So this follows the biblical law of kinds. Lawful jurisdictions, land and soil, are populated by lawful persons. So the American government is composed of 3 unions of different kinds of states. And 2 of those unions, the United States, soil, and the United States of America, land, are owned, operated, and governed by lawful persons. The state assemblies control the international jurisdiction of the land and sea, which includes international trade, except the constitutions made significant concessions delegating away some of their powers in the international jurisdiction of the sea, not all, to the British monarch. The State General Assembly is composed of electors, both state nationals and state citizens who own land within their borders of their state can serve as electors of the General Assembly. They are chosen at the county level by people who are qualified members of the soil jurisdiction Republican states. 2 electors as deputies for each county. Most states hold their General Assembly after the holidays, and it can run as little as a weekend or stretch on for months. Because the land and soil are inextricably combined, eligibility as a soil jurisdiction Republican state national or citizen automatically qualifies one to serve be a state national or state citizen. And for practical purposes, people from the republics act as people representing their state and international jurisdiction, so that both land and soil are populated at the same time and by the same people. Only some of them are further tasked to do business of the state, international. The State General Assembly takes up judicial issues that affect the people of the state and the enforcement of the public law, including enforcement of the constitutions and running the people's court and elections related to the courts and peacekeeping functions and officials. Unlike the State General Assembly, the State General Assembly runs all year long and pretty much 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The State General Assembly, like the State General Assembly, is composed of qualified jurors who are state citizens and state electors, people of the Republican states who have volunteered to serve their state government in the capacity of jurors. Jurors are typically not paid unless they are called to serve as part of a jury, either a grand jury or a trial jury. Sheriffs and justices, both state justices and justices of the peace, clerks, bondsmen, coroners, and other elected and hired members of the People's Court are paid either a monthly salary or on a case-by-case basis, or as agreed upon. The State Executive Assembly is elected as the State General Assembly, as one of the first acts of the State General Assembly each year. The State Executive Assembly continues to function throughout the year and is enabled to conduct routine business for the state, including issuing public notices, conducting elections, overseeing use and sale of state resources such as timber sales and public land leases, preparing ballot initiatives, and serving as an interface for communications with the government, including direction of the federal state-of-state corporation. Once we get organized to complete the reconstruction of the federal state-of-state, the State Executive Assembly also has the power to call the State General Assembly into special session if needed. State Executive Assemblies are basically committees of astute businessmen and women who have a state assembly chairman. and a state treasurer, and a state secretary, and a state executive assembly members from the land district within their state. These are called postal areas today, to delineate them from the seagoing postal districts. Together, the General Assembly, Jural Assembly, and State Executive Assembly conduct the international business of the State of the Union and work together to enforce the public law, make decisions about land and natural resources, ensure protection of property rights, postal roads, free public elections, and other business of the state. As he has already occurred to many people, the lack of regularly meeting and well-defined state general assemblies has left federal caretakers like the BLM and all the other ones in charge of state lands and policies regarding state land and resources for far too long. Let us also take note that our federal states of states are supposed to be involved at a federal level in representing our states internationally and globally. But owing to the fact that we have not reconstructed our Confederate States of States, that federal duty has been usurped by territorial states of states, a situation that leaves our states and people largely at the mercy of the British monarchs. Okay. So, I don't want to go too down, deep into the rabbit hole. There's information for days. Basically, the main thing that we need to realize is, we've been press ganged. So our whole life, and this is what the next video is going to go into. The next video, I'm going to talk about all our paperwork, how we reclaim all our property and our rights and our exemptions. And that's all our paperwork is. It's each individual, lawful person, each man or woman, reclaims their own rights and their own properties and their own assets. It has nothing to do, like, you doing your paperwork doesn't tie it to me in any way. It's all about reclaiming your name, your estate, your assets for you. So now, as we're being, misrepresented and misidentified as U.S. citizens, we obviously know that we don't have our rights, we don't have our exemptions, we don't have our freedoms. We're not working in the proper capacity. When we deal with our service providers, we don't talk to them from a standpoint of, employer speaking to employee. We talk to them as, scared citizen, talking to authority. And I just want to add some perspective on that. Obviously it's through indoctrination and, bad faith and unlawful conversion and propaganda and fear. False evidence appearing as real. Once we know who we are, and we know how to stand on it, there's no truth or fact, there's no way that they could prove, that we're not who we say we are. Once we have, all their claims rebutted. So as we stand as U.S. citizens, we have very different standing, and it comes with, a much different lifestyle than that of an American state national or an American state citizen. So I just want to go ahead and read real quick, the difference. So, when you're a U.S. citizen, you're considered an artificial being, or a human being, which means, a man or woman acting under color of law. So even being a human, just saying that you're a human as opposed to a man or woman, you subject yourself automatically to that Roman civil law, color of law. It says, so this is for statutory citizens or residents, which are U.S. citizens. So what's the status of this person? Legal person. All these citizens are public officers in the government, partaking of governmental franchises. Well, I wasn't one when I was, being claimed a U.S. citizen. I was in no way working for the government my whole life. I've never had a government job. But I've been mislabeled as U.S. citizen my whole life. Why? Nature of the status. Legal. Status under statutory civil law. Color of law, not the law. This is legal. This is the realm of legal and illegal. You see, we've grown up in this world of legal and illegal, which is only supposed to actually exist for corporations and for government employees. So it's vile and disgusting, what we've been subject to, and we can take a little bit of the blame for not being present and aware. And that's what this is about. This is about being present and aware, correcting the record, and making sure that we never let this happen to us again. Not only that we make sure that we start acting as employers, as people, as sovereigns in our own right, as self-governing, American state nationals and citizens who take care of their own lives, their own property, their own assets, their own counties, their own states. They make their own laws, and basically, as long as you don't harm another or trespass on their rights or their property, you've done no wrong. So that's how simple life's supposed to be for us. And instead, they've made us these legal persons who are under the color of law. We're under all, not law. We're under all these legal. We're not, but we've been forced to believe that we're supposed to stand under all these codes, regulations, policies, procedures, rules, mandates, and they're all just made up by man or woman that we've hired to provide us with service, and none of them apply to us. So that statutory civil law status is created by congressional grant, by statute. That status is a privilege / franchise. The type of jurisdiction, legislative, statutory jurisdiction. This citizen is defined in 8 U.S.C. 1401, 26 CFR 111C, 26 CFR 3121-1E, and I'm going to post these at the bottom. 8 U.S.C. 1101A 22A. They're domiciled in the federal statutory territory as defined in 4 U.S.C. 110. A U.S. person as defined in 26 U.S.C. 7701A, yes. So you can see that there's all these codes, and there's so much more. Like, this is not common sense for the common man or woman. Life is not you're not supposed to have to worry about all these definitions and codes. And so this is the legal world that they've created. And remember, they only apply to them. It's just that we've been consenting to it. So, may lawfully be issued a social security number? Yes. Human beings called U.S. citizen. Resident alien, defined under a certain code. Sovereign, no. Rights protected by enactments of Congress. And then it says in parentheses, privileges, not rights. Rights protected by the United States Constitution? No. No rights, only legislative privileges. Rights are revocable at the whim of Congress by legislative enactment and constitute privileges. Rights are surrendered by no rights to surrender. That's what it says. Definition of the United States. It says United States with 2 asterisks. So that's what we're going to talk about. The last thing I'm going to show y'all is that there's actually 3 definitions of the United States. When we're dealing with, the Supreme Court. So when they use, or anyone uses the words the United States, believe it or not, there's 3 different definitions. Were we ever taught that? Oh, you didn't know? Allegiance to the government of the United States. Relationship to national government, domestic. Tax status, statutory U.S. citizen or U.S. person. And then it says, are you required to file? Yes. Protected by Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act? No. A stateless person in federal court? No. Can vote in the state elections? Yes, as a voter. Allegiance directed at federal state, which is a federal corporation and the government that runs it. Okay, that's the U.S. citizen or the U.S. person. Now let's talk about a constitutional citizen or an American state national, American state citizen. The status of this person, a man or woman. Not artificial entities or corporations. Nature of their status, political status under the Constitution. Status created by we the people. Status is a right that cannot be taken away once granted. A privilege for permanent residents who apply for it, but not for those who already have it. So you can be born here and already have it, or you can move to this country and after a certain amount of years, as long as you're a law-abiding citizen, you haven't committed any trespass on anybody's rights or property, then you also will be eligible to become a state national. Type of jurisdiction, political jurisdiction. Citizen defined in 8 U.S.C. 1101 21A. Domiciled location, State of the Union. See, the U.S. persons and U.S. citizens are in a federal zone at all times. Even if we're standing in the same room. If you're a U.S. citizen and I'm an American state national, you're considered domiciled in a federal zone. And I'm considered domiciled in a state of the union. So even though we're standing 1 foot apart from each other, I have my rights and my exemptions intact, and you have, legislative, statutory civil law that can be taken away and changed at the whim of others. There's nothing free about that. A U.S. person? No. May lawfully be issued a social security number or tax ID number? No. See, we're not even supposed to have this. This is completely foreign to us. This is only created for them. We can be called a non-resident non-person, national under 8 U.S.C. 1101 21A, an American citizen, a citizen of the United States of America with 3 asterisks, or a citizen of the United States with 3 asterisks. We're not resident aliens. Remember, we're non-resident non-persons. Sovereign? Yes. Rights? Yeah, under the Constitution, you have all your Bill of Rights, and you have your Bill of Rights in your state constitution, and you have your unalienable rights. Rights protected by the U.S. Constitution? Yes. Rights protected by the state constitution? Yes. Rights are unalienable. They're impossible to be taken away or I guess you say donated, relinquished. Impossible. Rights are surrendered by incorrectly declaring yourself to be a statutory U.S. citizen, accepting any government benefit, and thereby waiving sovereign immunity. Definition of the United States. United States with the 3 asterisks. Allegiances to? Well, remember, the U.S. citizen had allegiance to the government. We have allegiance to the people in the states of the Union, our neighbors. Our relationship with the government that we've come to know, we're actually foreign with regards to them. They're a foreign nation with regards to us. Our tax status is non-resident, non-person, if exclusively private and not a public officer. So unless you're actually an agent for some type of government, you're actually considered a non-resident, non-person. And protected by the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act? Yes. A stateless person in federal court? Yes. States of the Union are not territorial states. Allegiance directed at constitutional state, which is all the sovereign people. And we're not required to file taxes. We're exempt from taxation. Now, we have the unalienable right to work for a fair compensation of one's wages. So taxes are for U.S. citizens. In the 19 enumerated services in the Constitution, one of their positions was, one of their delegated powers was that the government, the corporations that we hired, are allowed to lay excises, taxes, and duties on their own citizens to apply to pay that credit, to pay off that debt. Because you see, we issue them with credit; they're supposed to pay us it back. So, what's lawful versus legal? Lawful is in accordance with the law of the land. According to the law, permitted, sanctioned, or justified by law. Lawful properly implies a thing conformable to or enjoined by law. Legal, a thing in the form of or after the manner of law, or binding by law. A writ or warrant issuing from any court under color of law is a legal process. Color of law is the appearance or semblance without the substance of legal right, misuse of power, possessed by virtue of state law and made possible only because wrongdoer is clothed with authority of the state. Is action taken under color of law. So someone wearing a badge or a costume and claiming that something that's unconstitutional or unconscionable applies to you when it doesn't. That would be color of law. And there's thousands and millions of different types of examples. Most of the things we deal with on a day-to-day basis. But it's because you see there's two different sides of columns, and basically you see that U.S. citizens are subject to this, the statutory civil law, and that you see that the American nationals and American state citizens are, they only have rights and exemptions, as long as they don't harm another, trespassing on their rights or their property, they're free to come and go as they please. That's what free living's about. Do whatever the hell you want. Follow, lead, sing, dance, farm, work, grow, home, whatever you want to do. Just don't harm another. Don't trespass on their rights or their property. So there's been many times where people were misidentified and presumed to be something that they weren't, obviously. And those court cases were settled. So there's plenty of court cases saying a statute is not a law. A code is not a law. A concurrent or joint resolution of the legislator is not law. The writing will of the legislator solemnly expressed according to the forms prescribed in the Constitution, an act of the legislature. U.S. Supreme Court decision. The common law is the real law, the supreme law of the land. The codes, rules, regulations, policy, and statutes are not the law. These are all legal fictions, remember. All codes, rules, and regulations are for government authorities only, not humans/creators, in accordance with God's laws. All codes, rules, and regulations are unconstitutional and lacking due process. There every man is independent of all laws except those prescribed by nature. He is not bound by any institutions formed by his fellow man without his consent. Remember, government gets their power from the consent of the governed. There are no judicial courts in America and have not been since 1789. Judges do not enforce statutes and codes. Executive administrators enforce statutes and codes. There have not been any judges in America since 1789. There have only been administrators. The Supreme Court has warned, because of what appears to be lawful commands, statutory regulations, rules and codes, ordinances and restrictions, on the surface, many citizens, because of their respect for what appears to be law, are cunningly coerced into waiving their rights due to ignorance. And then it says, in parentheses, deceptive practices, constructive fraud, barratry, legal plunder, conversion, and malicious prosecution in inferior administrative state courts. The common law is the real law of the land. The codes, rules, regulations, policies, and procedures, and statutes are not the law. They are the law of government for internal regulations, not the law of man in his separate but equal station and natural state, a sovereign foreign with respect to government generally. Lacking due process of law in that they are void for ambiguity in their failure to specify the statutes applicability to natural persons, otherwise depriving the same of fair notice, as their constitution by definition of terms aptly identifies the applicability of such statutes to artificial or fictional corporate entities or persons, creatures of statute, or those by contract, employed as agents or representatives, departmental subdivisions, offices, and property of the government, but not the natural person or American citizen, immune from such jurisdiction of legalism. All right, so let's just show real quick. 3 different types of the United States, right? Oh. Where'd that go? Oh, here it is. All right, so there's 3 definitions of the United States as prescribed by the Supreme Court. So the first one, it may be merely the name of a sovereign occupying the position analogous to that of other sovereigns in the family of nations. These United States, when traveling abroad, you come under the jurisdiction of the President through his agents in the U.S. State Department, where U.S. refers to the sovereign society. You are a citizen of the United States, like someone is a citizen of France or England. We identify this version of the United States with a single asterisk. So this is international law. Second one, it may designate the territory over which the sovereignty of the United States extends. The United States, or in parentheses, the District of Columbia, possessions and territories. Here, Congress has exclusive legislative jurisdiction. In this sense, the term United States is a singular noun. You are a person residing in the District of Columbia, one of its territories or federal areas. Hence, even a person living in one of the sovereign states could still be a member of the federal area and therefore a citizen of the United States. This is the definition used in most acts of Congress and federal statutes. We identify this version of the U.S. with 2 asterisks in its names. This definition is also synonymous with the United States Corporation, found in 28 U.S.C. 3002 15A. So that's the corporation. That's Washington, D.C. And remember, if you're a U.S. person or a U.S. citizen, they're domiciling you in this jurisdiction where Congress has, exclusive authority over you. But in reality, if you're born in one of the states of the Union, this is the United States that applies to you. The third one, as the collective name for the states which are united by and under the Constitution. This is the federal government, states of the Union, and no part of the federal territory. The several states, which is the United States of America, referring to the 50 sovereign states which are united under the Constitution of the United States of America. The federal areas within these states are not included in this definition because the Congress does not have exclusive legislative authority over any of the 50 sovereign states within the Union of States. Rights are retained by the states in the 9th and 10th Amendments, and you are a citizen of these United States. This is the definition used in the Constitution for the United States of America. We identify this U.S. with 3 asterisks. So that's it. If you're an American state national or American state citizen, you'll be domiciled in the United States, with the 3 asterisks. And basically, domicile, residence, citizenship, inhabitants, and residency are all synonymous. They all mean the same thing technically. So we go with, I say domicile. So I'm domiciled without the federal zone, and I'm domiciled in my state of the union. Okay, so I think that was plenty of information. Like I said, we can give information for days. So we're going to leave some for the next video. The next video is going to talk about, like I said, I'm going to just go over the 928 documents, the paperwork, how you reclaim, your property, your name, your states, and your assets. And, we've obviously talked about it here. You're either a legal person or a lawful person. And the only one that's actual, factual, will have their unalienable rights and their constitutional rights and guarantees intact. And they will have nothing to do with with Congress or any federal statutes or any federal zone, is a lawful person. So that's why we need to correct our status, and we need to, correct our mindset. We need to get out of the mindset of, this person has authority. This person's bigger than me, because they're not. Remember, these are the U.S. persons. These are the U.S. citizens. So all these governmental service providers, remember, what they're doing, it has nothing to do with you. It only applies to federal zones and, the federal corporation. And the only reason we've been thinking, that it applies to us is because we've been living in their little fake world that they've been, creating and, playing. And that's what we're doing. We're taking our names, estates, and our bodies off of their board, and we're domiciling them back on the State of the Union, where we're sovereign, where we have all authority, where we have all freedoms and all rights and all protections and safeties, where things make sense, where it's common sense. We don't need to worry about billions and billions and billions of statutes and codes and rules and regulations. All we need is to know his principles, and morals and common sense. And that's why we have our unalienable rights, we have our Bill of Rights, we have our neighbors, and we have our brains, so we need to just focus more on, just doing some more research and just asking more questions, not being so trustworthy, especially when it comes to, people providing us with services and, with robbing us of our money and our assets. And especially when, they're trying to rob us of our liberties and our freedoms and our rights. Those are unalienable. They can't be taken away. So again, I don't want to, go too long. So I'm going to stop here. Just want to say appreciate it if y'all stuck around and listened. If y'all are hungry and thirsty for knowledge and information, just like I was, you will find it. If you're the type of person who, you grew up in a world of indoctrination and with things being handed and given to you and done for you, and you don't see the need, or you don't have a care, or it don't really matter, then this is not for you. But, if you're someone who wants to, take your life in your own hands, and, the life of your babies and all your assets and your property, and, you're tired of these people robbing you blind. You're tired of donating, your and your family's wealth away for no reason. And, remember, they're going to say ignorance is no excuse to the law. When we know who we are, nothing they do, has any substance whatsoever. I mean, it's a total facade, this world that we've been living in. And that's like the craziest thing to understand is just that, we really have been living in an invisible, man-made world. And, there really are 2 realities. There's the one, which is the one that they're creating, which is obviously led by fear and control and propaganda and misinformation, misguidance, zero transparency. And then there's the actual factual world where everyone takes care of themselves and their neighbors. And, they have all authority. They're not able to be taxed. They make their own rules and laws as long as they don't harm another. They could decide what they want to believe, what they want to read, what they want to preach, how they want to, what talents and passions they want to pursue. But remember, As long as you don't harm another, just don't trespass on their rights or their property. Life can be very simple, y'all. And luckily, the 50 state assemblies are in session, so the assemblies are growing. We just need more people to populate and just to fill these fiduciary roles that haven't been filled in a long time. And obviously, I've taken up one of the roles. I'm the coordinator for Georgia, so if anyone's interested in joining the Georgia Assembly, you can reach out to me, or from the website, or if you have my personal information. Either way. And if you're on one of the other states, definitely reach out to your state assembly. So again, we're going to sign off here. Next video, we'll talk about paperwork, and y'all have a wonderful day. Thanks for stopping by.